connecting point, our traditional format, already used for several months, and a very good format, connecting point, dedicated today to the UN International Day of Peace. I would like to invite you to another big and non-virtual event that we are preparing now with the connected problematics on the sustainable development and goals of UN on sustainable development, which will be held on 22-23 October in Brussels. So we'll be very happy to meet you in Brussels for the International Youth Forum, Brussels Dialogue. And so I would like one more time to invite everybody who can join us in Brussels on 22-23 of October. Please save the date for the third edition of our International Youth Forum. And now I wish you a very interesting and fruitful discussion. And I give the floor to my colleague, Luciana Suvorova, who will be moderator of today's Connecting Point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Bunina. Today, indeed, we have a very interesting discussion. We have Russian and Belgian experts, whom I'm very happy to introduce you. First of all, our great partner, Natalia Burlinova, who is the president of PICREADI, Creative Diplomacy. She is also the member of the Advisory Council of Россотрудничество. And besides this very active young lady leading many different projects. I would like to introduce you another speaker from Belgium, Rustam Baratov, who is the founder and the CEO of the Foundation Future International Forum, based in New York, but working internationally. And Rustam is very experienced within different UN platforms and youth initiatives. So we will have a very interesting discussion today. Another speaker from Belgium that I would like to introduce you is Dilay Karakadioglu. She is the president of APNU Jeunesse, that is Association for United Nations, the youth branch. She is also a trainee diplomat of the Belgian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a very active young lady, and motivating a lot other young people in Belgium to be active within United Nations. And another speaker that I would like to introduce is Georgie Balandin. He's Secretary General of Turkey Moscow International Model United Nations, the biggest model in Russia. And he is the new elected Secretary General. So the following model that is going to be organized is going to be led by him. And you're very, very welcome to participate. And we hope that after our event, we can have some good collaborations, and maybe some delegates from Belgium can travel to Russia to participate, as well as delegates from Russia can travel and participate in Belgium in UN models. And I just would like to underline also that the model is also project, if I may say like this, of the Russian Association for the United Nations. So we have both use branches, use projects of these associations from Belgium and from Russia. And so today we speak about the Peace Day that were celebrated on 21st of September. Of course, probably this year there are first events that are not organized online, and there was a big opening of the General Assembly in the United Nations. But still, some events are ongoing online, including our event right now. But at the same time, it gives us some good opportunities to speak. So I would like to give the floor to start to Natalia, and after our conversation, I would like also to ask Natalia to give us some feedbacks. So please, the floor is yours.
Okiana, thank you very much. I would like to thank you for this kind presentation of me and of our organization. I would be happy to say a few words to our participants about creative diplomacy, and then I will be happy to listen to our speakers and maybe to sum up some ideas. So about creative diplomacy. Creative diplomacy is a Russian non-governmental organization. In Russian, we call it Kreativная дипломатия. We are a very small organization. We're not a big one, but we try to do
big, great projects.
we try to realize big projects, and we have our primary project is Meeting Russia project. This is a public diplomacy program for young leaders from the European countries and from the US mostly. And we invite young experts who are focused on Russia, on international relations, on foreign policy. Well, before COVID, we used to invite people to Moscow to participate in this very high-level program. During this program, we organize meetings of our participants with the leading Russian diplomats, politicians, experts, a lot of things. So this is exactly the program for those who are interested in Russian foreign policy. And we do a lot of projects, let's say, inside Russia for developing Russian public diplomacy. We do training courses. We organize debates as well for young experts in foreign policy and international relations. And right now, 3 weeks, last week, this week, next week, we will be having a big joint event with the Fletcher School of Law and Public Diplomacy of the Tufts University, the Kortunov's Global Affair Debates. So if you're interested, you may visit our website and our group on Facebook. So we do a lot of things. We cooperate with the Presidential Foundation, with the Korchikov Foundation. So we are in this melting pot of Russian public diplomacy, I would say. But we are very interested in developing relations and contacts with the European organizations, NGOs and think tanks and expert societies and young leaders, because we see our main goal is as the dialogue between Russian young experts and European and US young experts for the future of peaceful relations, I would say. So these are just a few words about our organization.
Yes, thank you so much, Natalia. You also write, you and your colleagues and alumni are meeting Russia. They're writing different research about international affairs. And if you just could share with us your vision about the United Nations, is it in the agenda, or people are more focused on bilateral relations or relations of some other international organizations, in your
I mean, in
opinion?
Russia.
Yes.
Well, traditional Russian diplomacy is focused on UN. So UN is a big partner for Russia, and I think that this is extremely important for the Russian foreign policy to cooperate with the UN and all the structures. At least we are members of the Security Council of the UN. So yeah, I guess that we give a lot of attention to the UN structures, a lot of our budget. Maybe we should do that in a bigger way, but we do it as we do it. So yes, and I think that still Russia is a very traditional country when we talk about UN and approaches to developing and to reforming such structures. We believe that Russian foreign policy believes that cooperation between official organizations is very important, and it's very important to see UN as a platform for a dialogue and developing some very important ideas and to tackle with the very important things and challenges which appear today in the face of all the countries. So yeah, as for bilateral relations, well, this does not exclude, supporting UN and having good relations with the international organizations does not exclude good bilateral relations. So these are two pillars of international relations in general. That's my answer for your question.
Okay, thank you so much, Natalia. So we will wait for your feedbacks and evaluation also, or if you want to comment anything, of course, please. And we move on, and I would like to give the floor to Rustam Baratov, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate in today's discussion. I think we have different parties, which I'm sure we'll have a fruitful discussion. So my name is Rustam Baratov. I've been based in New York for the past 2 years, and I'm also the founder of, as Luciana mentioned, Future International Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization dedicated to empowering youth to really take action, but also to strengthen their participation in the political and the civil life. And this is something that I'm very much passionate about, youth and promoting youth engagement between different countries, as well as the UN, as how I have been, working in this field for the past 5 years. When we look at, and I think, first I just want to, highlight, I think, so we've celebrated the UN Peace Day on September 21st. This year's theme is recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world. And I think it's especially, how do we build on post-COVID-19 pandemic? How do we inspire youth? How do we think creativity, and how do we, work collectively together, about all those issues? So, we're trying to leave all the, political and positions aside, and we're really trying to think on how do we really support youth within the UN. How do we strengthen the representation? Because we feel that a lot of young people, if you look, and I've actually, I'll talk about it because I just got back from a forum in Russia that took place 2 weeks ago. How do we really try to recover, and how do we build resilience? So with that said, the UN General Assembly, which has been taking place, has been very interesting if you've tried to follow that. You know, there's a lot of like stigma, there's a lot of discrimination, there's a lot of like things going on. But like, I think that the message I want to convey, and this is one of the pillars of our foundation, is, you know, how do we try to build relationships that, you know, build a better world, and make essentially a difference to young people, no matter where they are. You know, it may be like in rural areas, it may be in Belgium. I've seen personally youth being excluded from like employment opportunities in New York. You know, how do we really try to, you know, continue on that track and path? There's like a lack of access to education, healthcare. There are a lot of topics, and I think this is like, this brings us to really trying to think creatively. I think multilateralism is very important. As Natalie mentioned, they're like very much open to, you know, developing programs that may support or like, you know, include youth in different areas. So I'd be happy to talk more about, you know, different areas, how the UN is thinking forwards, and as well like a lot of civil society, how you can get involved, and how we can, you know, try to think this year and as well next year to, you know, make sure that we really fall on the purpose of the United Nations, and how do we collaborate together collectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rustam. Could you please tell us maybe some examples of the initiatives that are organized of the foundation, or maybe some UN initiatives where you participated?
Yes, I'd be happy. I think this is something I'm very much passionate about. I can talk a lot about it. So we founded a foundation in 2020, just like amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. So it's been quite tough, but we're really we've been taking time to participate in a lot of different like opportunities with the UN. So one of the opportunities and one of the areas we work and collaborate is with the UN data, as well the UN digital UN civil society unit. So one of my friends, she's leading that. However, she's been doing incredible work, you know, trying to heading the civil society and engagement with different stakeholders and making sure that everyone is included. So for example, right now there are a few areas we're being involved. One is on consultations on the LDC, so the least development countries, fifth preparatory committee meetings that say will take place next year in the Middle East. So we've been trying to contribute and address youth issues post-19 pandemic, and how can we ensure that, you know, we build an equitable but also a peaceful world. And just so you know, if you imagine like youth aged between like 15 and 24, they're estimated to grow from 168 million to about like 300 million by 2050. So there's a lot of opportunity for us to, you know, find those opportunities in the least developed countries. Secondly, we're participating and just trying to address different issues and challenges that youth is facing, and even in developed countries in Belgium, where I'm based right now, or in New York, to work towards the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're trying to find areas that would include youth to participate to strengthen the representation. So, you know, we plan to have delegations, we plan to have formal representations at a table together with, you know, different missions, different stakeholders. The only thing I would say is just, when you look, you know, I come from a Silicon Valley background, so I've worked with very fast-paced companies where things really move fast, and you know, you can have an idea today, and you know, it can be a reality tomorrow. This is not really the case with the UN, so you have to think seriously. You have to be very process-driven. So a lot of initiatives we're trying to set up right now, we'll only see the impact in, you know, next year or the years after. With that said, I think it's important to start somewhere, and you know, we've been leading the way forwards on a lot of issues, trying to build relationships. We're thinking on how do we, you know, also like participating in knowledge sharing. You know, if there's a project we are being looking at right now in New York to find pathways for youth from unprivileged and from different, you know, backgrounds for them to enjoy the work employment. How can we take that experience and how can we, develop something in Belgium, in Africa, or even in Russia? I think, I spent about a week in at the previous forum that was held in Nuremberg, the Eurasia Global, which saw an attendance of 77 different countries and youths, all together. And I think those are areas it's important for us to participate, and it's important for us to be involved, because this is again like the multi-stakeholder approach, which allows us to think creatively, find ways, and also like understand, within our organizations, we think on how do we identify areas or challenges that youth is facing in rural areas in developed countries, and how do we build a response to it, whether it's like from us participating at the UN or really trying to do capacity building programs. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you very much, Rustam. I still have some questions to you, but I will give the floor to other speakers, and then we will come back. So right now, I would like to give the floor to Dilay Karakadioglu, please, the president of APNU Jeunesse.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, and thank you very much. It's my biggest pleasure to be here in this discussion with you as a president of APNU Jeunes. So maybe let me first explain what APNU Jeunes is doing. Our main mission is really to reach out to young people in Belgium, French-speaking, because we also do have the Flemish-speaking part of the organization. But our main public is the French-speaking youth in Belgium, and we are really trying to translate, to promote, and to explain the work of the United Nations to young people, because when you're young, you might feel super far away from these organizations. You might not know very well what the UN is doing, how the UN is functioning, why, and also why it is important, and how youth can also get involved, and why also it concerns them. So this is our main mission, and we are trying to do different activities, not only conferences, but workshops, networking events. We're also trying to collaborate with other youth associations, for example, Comité Diplomatique. Yeah, this is our main mission. We are also trying to be very present on the social media, because we all know today that most of the young people are at least on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and social media do have a very big power, I think, to reach the youth, but in a smart way, and also in an engaging and interactive way. So we also do have a very strong communication strategy to speak with them, to interact with them, and to also make them engage in our activities. And it was our only tool during COVID, for example, because we couldn't organize any events in person. So our social medias were our pillar during COVID, basically. What else? We're also trying to write some articles for youth, and explain what's happening currently at the UN, and try to keep young people updated, but always in a way that can make them involved, and in a way that they can understand, because we know that the UN is big, it's very complicated sometimes, the functioning system. So we're trying to make it easy to translate. So voilà, this is what we're doing, and it's personally, I'm very happy to be part of this organization, and currently to be president of this organization, because we are a team of students and young professionals. We are around 10, 11. And we are all working together on these events, on our activities. We're always brainstorming, and we are constantly learning from each other. Because the thing with the UN is that it covers a lot of subjects, you know, gender equality, security, environment. And in our team, we all do have our kind of expertise, and we are very free in the initiative. So if someone, for example, wants to organize, a webinar about gender equality and the action of the UN on it, the person organized, and for example, as a president, I'm here for the support, and the communication team is promoting. So we're trying to act in an active way, and we're constantly learning from each other, and we're interacting with youth, and we're also trying to connect young people with senior people, people who have already experience. We are depending of APNU, which is in French, Association pour les Nations Unies, and this part of the, because we're the youth section, but let's say the senior section is composed of people who worked for the UN or for Belgian diplomacy, and we are interacting and working with them, and it's super empowering because it's all about sharing experience, trying to make youth inspired, because they are the future. So voilà.
Thank you very much. And what is your observation? Are young people interested in the United Nations?
Yes, they are. Actually, young people really want to know more about the UN, and they really want to get involved. But the problem, what I have observed, is that they don't know how. They just don't know how, and they feel that, okay, maybe my action, what I will do, won't have an impact. And I think that our generation and the next generations are looking for impact. They want to have an impact, to bring something concrete. So in our activities with APNU Jeunes, we are trying our best to bring that side. For example, one of our events, it was a webinar on Belgium's sixth mandate at the UN Security Council. It was in 2019-2020. And we organized this webinar with the permanent representative of Belgium to the UN, the Director General of Multilateral Affairs of the Belgian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and young people. And they could ask directly their questions to those two excellent guests who have so many experience and who were, they were active in the mandate. And yeah, of course, they had, they gave a briefing during 15 minutes about who they are, what they did. But then it was all about youth asking questions to them, and it was a real conversation. And we were very happy that we could give this chance to young people to directly interact with these people, because you don't have the chance every day to speak to an ambassador or so many important and experimented people. And it was empowering for young people, but also for our guests who could also interact with youth. And I think they both learned from each other. But yeah, to maybe conclude, young people want to know more about the UN, but I think they just don't know how to get involved. And I think it's our mission to show them how to get involved, and to show them that their actions can have an impact.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think that also after this event, some young people who watch us, they can come and participate in the events that you are organizing. Thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Georgie Balandin, please, our Secretary General.
Thank you very much, Luciana. And first of all, thank you for the invitation and for hosting the discussion. I'm very much excited to be here with you today as a Secretary General for Turkey and Moscow International MUN. And I would like to start from afar a little. And I think that with the 76th session of the General Assembly taking place at the moment, it's precisely the right timing to discuss what actual role the UN plays in international environment. And I'm sure that every one of you has already got themselves acquainted with the speech made by the Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, where he listed 6 great divides that the society is facing currently. They are peace and security, climate change, economic inequality, gender inequality, digital gap, and generation gap. I would like to keep in mind the very last one, generation gap, because we're going to reference it later. As for the model, I believe that spreading awareness and educating people on how to make an input to change the world is crucial, not only on the highest level, but also among regular people, especially students. And that's where the model UN precisely comes into place. Every model UN, and especially ours, Turkey Moscow International Model United Nations, offers no less than 3 opportunities for self-improvement. Well, there are obviously more, but I would like to focus on just 3 of them. They are critical thinking, debate, and language practice. Our delegates, those who prepare for the conference, spend a huge amount of time studying for it. Delegates scrutinize the agenda, find all the important details to become an expert in it, and immerse themselves in a country, since they represent one of the countries of their choice, not their own position. And during the process of preparation, they package all the acquired knowledge in concise speeches to make during the sessions of the committee. And the process is no less than exciting and fun, and overall just a good way to get yourself into a new area, to enter a new sphere, uncharted for one, and just to become an expert in it in a short period of time. And participating in the sessions with fellow delegates that are eager to share their own take on subject matter opens floor for heated discussions and debates that usually take place in all of the committees. Not only do the delegates learn how to persuade others, but they also need to learn how not to just hear, but to listen proactively. And of course, in order to debate, negotiate, and just orally communicate, you have to speak the same language. And the more languages you speak, the more opportunities you have to share your thoughts and enter discussions with people. Languages is one of the special features of our own Model United Nations, since we host our committees in all 6 languages of the United Nations. We have this year we have 4 committees in Russian, 5 in English, and 1 in French, Spanish, Arabic, and Chinese each, with all the agendas relevant to what problems we're having right now, and just general problems that the United Nations is facing on a regular basis. And all the experience that I've described is wrapped into a package of tackling real problems, examining actual solutions, and proposing new ones. And very often they come from an unexpected perspective. Delegates learn more about the UN, its purpose, its goals. And even if a person initially enters the conference only to improve themselves, they cannot help but to feel the true meaning and the significance behind the organization after the conference is over. What is best is that when the conference is over, in many cases, the delegates go on and spread the message about the model and the United Nations itself, inviting others to participate. And some of them may even decide to dedicate their own life to the diplomatic sphere, or maybe even to the working in the organization. Well, to conclude, looking back at the great divides that I mentioned in the beginning, I think that Model UN is one of the ways to tackle the generation gap. Learning more about the world, being part of something big, and feeling empowered is imperative for the young people, to make a significant and meaningful impact for the planet in the future. Because tomorrow we will shape the world. So I suggest that we spend our today to prepare for it. So when tomorrow comes, we will be ready for it. That is precisely the idea behind the model.
Thank you very much for very dynamic also speech. It was very great. And just a question, did you have delegates from Belgium and maybe from other countries? I know that the model is international.
Yes, model is truly international. Each year we have delegates from more than 30 countries, regardless of the continent. It's either Europe or Latin America or Africa even. And I believe that from Belgium, yes, we did have delegates. I cannot list you all of them, obviously, for reasons. But yes, our model is very popular among Europeans. We have people from Switzerland, from Italy, from Belgium, from Germany, and last year the whole pandemic didn't interrupt the process, and delegates who were not able to come to Russia had an opportunity to participate via video conference. We launched our first model in a hybrid format, so that all the delegates in Russia were presential, and all the delegates from other countries were in video conference. Let me tell you that it did not hinder in any way the whole process of moderating the committees, and delegates who were online were just as much involved as were the delegates who were presential. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much. And did you participate also in some other models in other countries?
Yes, unfortunately, last 2 years have been rough on our participation in models in other countries. But before, we had delegates participate in models in Saudi Arabia, in United Arab Emirates. Personally, I participated in a model in Madrid, organized by Complutense University. Models in Italy are our regular partners, and we really hope that this year, or maybe if not this one, the next year, we will be able to organize a whole delegation of our model to visit models in other countries. And the biggest one in the United States that takes place in the whole of the General Assembly is also part of our schedule. So let's see what the future holds for us, and be optimistic about it.
Yeah, thank you very much. There was a comment or question by Rustam.
No, I just want to applaud, and just very briefly, because I participated in Model UN, and this is actually the best way to learn about the United Nations and like the UN family and the systems. So I just wanted to applaud, and I think such initiatives where you can participate or at least discover the works is utmost important. I do want to add like one area which I find important is also the cultural aspect of participating in like event like Model United Nations or any other like type of model simulations. Because it really allows you to connect, in different levels. It allows you to learn more about cultures, meet people from so many countries, but also to, really spend time and build relationships. Model UN is something very specific. I'm a big fan. I've started my Model UN career in 2014, being like one of the smallest countries in West Africa. Benin, which I had no clue, what to do and how to write position papers. Till the moment where I was engaging with foreign ministers in some other countries. There are like a lot of famous people, like the former Secretary General, like Ban Ki-moon. He participated in the Model UN. The Dutch Prince Willem-Alexander, he like as a student he was participating in Model UN. and now like he's taking sometimes stage to speak. So no, I just want to applaud, and I think for you and young people who are watching right now, it's a very good opportunity for you to learn, understand, and also to get involved in your local UN association.
And what are the biggest model in Belgium?
So I do have a lot of most of my friends actually. Let me start with when I started my studies here in Belgium, in Brussels. So I did business administration. There weren't a lot of model United Nations organized. You had the ULB one, which was the biggest at that time. You had the one from like a few universities, like the K11, one of the largest universities in Belgium, one of the 11th. So I believe, because when you look at the model UN in Belgium, it was mostly held at the university level in colleges, whereas in some countries like the United States, where I've spent the past 2 years, it was more prevalent in high schools. So you had more like, model United Nations at high schools. So I would love to see that, more happening here in Belgium. So yeah, there were a few big ones, usually because, Belgium is very small. A lot of like youth and participants, they travel a lot, to Europe, or even like in Pakistan. I've participated in like Model United Nations, Pakistan, Central Asia, the Harvard Model UN, which is, has been held every year. I think the previous one, like the last one, was in Rome, and then like COVID hit.
Thank you. And Delay, do you also organize a United Nations model or not?
We are not organizing model of United Nations, but we are collaborating with the different MUN teams. We are promoting their action because it's super important. I also did model of United Nations, and it's very empowering. And I think, because I'm someone who has always been super active in extra academic activities and initiatives, and I think model of United Nations was one of the association which make me grow the most as a person and also professionally. So we are promoting their actions with Apnujon as much as we can, and also if we can sometimes take part, also explain Apnujon's actions. We are doing our best for the support.
Thank you. And I know that there is also the program in Belgium, UN Young Delegates. If you also collaborate with this program, or do you know about this? If you can tell some words.
Yes, so the UN Youth Delegate Program is an initiative from the Youth Council, the Belgian Youth Council, but it's divided again with the French-speaking one and the Dutch-speaking one. So for the French-speaking part, it's Forum des Jeunes, and the Dutch-speaking one, it's the Vlaams Jeugdraad, and they all have, like, each organization has UN delegates. So I think there's one for youth, environment, sustainability, and also biodiversity. And they're not elected, but I think they take exams, a kind of exam to be selected. So it's a selection happening every year. And it's an amazing opportunity, I think, because they are working with the foreign affairs, with Belgian institutions, and they get the chance to go to, before COVID, to go to New York at the General Assembly or the high-level political forum. They interact with the permanent representation. They can give some speeches, and they consult youth, Belgian youth. They're trying also to make activities here because they're representing Belgian youth. But with Appijeune, we are also collaborating with them because they're super important for us. We are often meeting them, trying also to get involved in their activities. Something we did last year, it was Oriane Schmidt, who was the UN Young Delegate for Youth, and she chose to focus on gender equality for her mandate. And she created a team because she didn't want to act alone. She really wanted to make young people involved in her team. And she asked for Appijeune that someone can also be involved in the team as Appijeune and bring some support about, some specific files or initiatives, and this is one of our collaboration. We're also trying to have their testimony after the GA, and we are publishing their testimony. So this is the way we are collaborating with them, but they're super important because they really do have this representing action that young people need.
Yes, it's very great. And actually, I would like to tell that in Russia, they were also inspired by this program. And because once I worked for National Youth Council of Russia, something like the same as Forum Jeunesse in Belgium. So we also created the same program in Russia, UN Young Delegates. So Georgie, for you, once it can be also interesting to apply and to participate because the delegates, they are included in official delegation. They really can participate. In General Assembly. They can deliver a speech, and also in some other events like ECOSOC forum or some different initiatives related with young people. And also what we have in Russia that could be interesting, there is a global UN program of young leaders of sustainable development goals. And because Russia is quite a big country, so National Youth Council of Russia, with the support of the Minister of Foreign Affairs, they launched the same program just for Russia. So there are 17 young leaders who are elected to be a Sustainable Development Goal young leader. And I know that Commonwealth of Independent States, our neighbor countries, they were also inspired by this idea. So some countries, they also started to implement this program. So these are young people who are responsible for different SDGs, and they also participating in programs promoting the SDG, but initially how they are elected, they have to be active in some field. That is also, in my opinion, quite interesting experience. So I see that here there are people who are really believe in the United Nations, and that is great. But I would like to ask you, how do you think, what is the role of the United Nations in peace building? Of course, last year we celebrated 75th anniversary and 75th anniversary of global peace that we have on the planet. But at the same time, we see that there are so many local conflicts, regional conflicts. So what is your opinion about this? I would like to first ask Rustam.
Yeah, thanks so much. So essentially, when you look at the United Nations that was created in 1945, you can be very technical. You can go like, they're really like the pillars of the UN. But the way I see it, and a lot of people I think, is the bigger vision is how the United Nations, collaborates and just, provides a platform for, for us, like our leaders or every country to really like, coordinate different missions and to find just like a platform to have dialogue. You have the UN Security Council, which, meets regularly and has working groups tackling, like, for example, like in the past, there was the Yemen situation, and there was, the Afghan situation. I think the biggest role of the UN is trying to prevent conflict, and by preventing, I mean also to help and support them by deploying different missions. You have the blue helmets and the peacekeeping missions. I don't know exactly how many there are currently, but they are they're ongoing. And then you have countries who support those peacekeeping missions by almost like providing military and providing like humanitarian aid support. And this allows really to have UN in this very unique position in different areas to be there also just as an impartial party, someone that really can, try to find dialogue. It's not easy. I think there's a lot of like, discussion on how to, not endanger youth. For example, like within our foundation, we're looking at doing some of the capacity building programs or in West Africa. We have someone on our team. He has a similar role as the SDG ambassador. So he speaks and tries to raise awareness about how youth and local people can contribute to SDGs and Sustainable Development Goals. The biggest question we have is how do we try to work with all of the parties together without endangering youth? It's a big challenge for us. How do we make sure that we can get the information? How can we have someone from our team maybe travel like to there to be there present without really putting ourselves and putting someone else in danger? And and I think like by being able to partner with the UN, and then the UN has those like logistical like arms would allow us to play that important role, but also like seen not as the United Nations, not as this huge international intergovernmental organization, but simply just there like for the benefits of young people, and like trying to build like capacity building programs while the UN is focusing more on maintaining international peace. And this of course allows a lot of organizations, and I think us especially to work on the programs that do matter and the programs that can create impact locally and in rural areas.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Rustam. And Georgie, what do you think? What is your opinion?
Well, I am really fond of the word used by Rustam, which is a platform. And that's precisely the way how to describe the United Nations as it is. I think that it is not even about how it handles conflicts, whether local or on a much bigger scale. It's about being a platform to introduce, to develop, to strengthen ideas, and most importantly, to draw attention of all the member states to one of the problems. UN is not an international body that can legally enforce any action into a member state, but it can make every effort to draw attention of all the countries to an existing problem for these countries to influence it in their own way. And maintaining peace and international security right now is not even about whether a conflict breaks out somewhere or not. It's more about sustainable development for the sake of everyone, and in spreading awareness and in inspiring people to look more into it, in making reports annually, semi-annually, reports by Secretary General and the representatives. This is what accomplishes this task. And if we're speaking about the conflicts, still there are particular bodies dedicated to overseeing the situation from escalating into something worse. And as Rustam has mentioned, yes, the Security Council obviously is summoned every time a crisis erupts and takes effective measures to tackle it. Yes, I think that being a platform is more than enough to influence the states to act themselves, to transform, to engage. And yeah, that is the point of the United Nations for me.
Thank you very much, Georgie. And Dile, what is your opinion?
I completely agree with the platform that idea that Rustam talked about, and also dialogue. I think it's the most important. I'm convinced that if you can't act if you don't communicate, and I think it's the first thing that the UN does. It's to give this ability of 193 states to communicate. And when you think about that, it's kind of huge. And it's also, I think, a way to maintain and strengthen multilateralism, which is the base of the creation of the UN. So this action of maintaining, but also being a mediator, to keep the dialogue open constantly. But I also think that the UN needs to adapt to what's happening now, because things are evolving, the world is changing. We're talking more and more about also transversal questions like gender equality, human rights, environmental issues. And we can see that with the years, it's like the UN has more and more mission, and I think the missions are evolving, and they're also including more people, civil society, youth. I think it's super important, and also I think the UN is becoming more visible thanks to social media. I was already mentioning before, but youth is very active on social media, and it just takes 1 second to follow the UN on Twitter or Instagram, and you can really have a vision. I think 20 years ago, 30 years ago, people couldn't see that. It was hidden and you couldn't really have an idea of what's going on. And I think that being visible, communicate, show to people what it's doing. It's also a mission to get people involved as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for this answer. And I have some other questions. There are some countries who are criticizing the United Nations. There are some countries who are completely in favor of the United Nations. There are some countries who try to create some other councils, units, and unions, and so on. But at the same time, many underline that the United Nations is big and maybe a bit slow in decision making and needs some reforms. So, in your opinion, what could be good reforms for the United Nations? You can also start, Delay, if you want.
It's a tough question because, as you said, it's so big. You know, you have agencies, you have like, it's so big that I don't know if like one big reform would help, but maybe one thing that people also don't really realize is that actions also take time. People sometimes expect that, yeah, like the next day there will be a big action which will solve absolutely everything, but it's not happening like that. It takes discussions, so many hours of discussions. It's not easy to dialogue actually with 193 states. It's also the difficulty. So having dialogue it's great and it's crucial, but it's also something that we need to know to manage. But about the reforms, we hear a lot about the Security Council, and the action, the way of how it's functioning, and we could see the last few years that most of the time, at the end, the Security Council was blocked in its actions with the veto system. But it's very difficult to have, an opinion, like a very specific opinion, because there can be so many ways that it could function, that it also depends, I think, not only on the UN, but also on how the world is evolving and how people are getting involved. And yes, doing reforms, but how, with who, which tools? I think it's also important to ask these questions, because yes, doing a reform. We hear a lot of things about like doing a reform about this, but I think it's also important to ask the good questions about, okay, why reforms, how, which tools, with who, which results do we expect, and have some guidelines, and that will be my answer. It's very large, but I think we can brainstorm about it about hours and hours and hours.
Okay, thank you very much. And Georgie, what is your opinion?
Well, I completely agree with all said previously. Yes, this is a very complex process of proposing a reform, and currently it is in a complete stalemate, since we have permanent members of the Security Council who are in a constant struggle in how to, in which way to drive this right now imaginary reform. But well, my solution for it would appear as something like increasing perhaps the membership of developing countries, of Latin American countries, of African countries, of Asian countries. We're not talking about permanent membership, because this is even more complex process of trying to change it. It lies, it is what the charter is based on. But I cannot see any problem with increasing the membership of the Security Council for non-permanent members, for it to this, and more open to opinions and approaches to be heard, since members are already elected of coming from different regions, but it can be improved upon. And my second proposal would be a more transparent for Secretary General. Started with the first term of Antonio Guterres, proved that it is possible to change procedure for it to become more feasible, more democratic. And I think in the future we will be able to see more opportunities for changes in that sphere to apply for the Secretary General. Yes, that's probably my topic.
Thank you very much for your opinion. And Rustam?
Yeah, so I do want to second, what has been previously said. The way I like to see it is, yes, reforms, change of processes, frameworks, they all take they take a long time, they take a lot of energy and work, and it will take a lot of time. I want to make an analogy. So when you have areas in a city that have been gentrified in a very positive way, when you see new coffee shops, you see new small shops, like small medium-sized businesses come in. It usually takes a long time. It usually takes like those people that's are actually moving there because the rent is cheap, and because it provides them with creativity. In the same way, I see a lot of my friends, I see a lot of people, young people around the world, be those change makers, be those activists that they may be like the 1% of youth who's trying to steer the conversation, who's there every time something happens, and they're the first people to respond or call on their governments. It's and give it like a few years, give it some time. We see a lot of change happening. I've been following the work of the Secretary General Antonio Guterres. This year, I think last month, there was a message he posted, just kind of like noting that the COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted and stressed the need on transformational change. He's trying to do work. I support some of his actions, but it will take time. The SDGs, it took a lot of time for to have all the parties agree all on the 17 SDGs and everything else. The only difference is that when you speak about gender equality, education, for me, speaking about even climate change in Belgium is very different to speaking to someone else about climate change in Africa. They may try to think about education. They need like a roof on above their heads. They need to make sure that they can provide for the family. So it's very different, and I think we need to understand localities, and we need to understand micro communities for us to really try that change at a global scale. To involve youth. Something I do want to mention that has been worked and has been published is the Youth 2030, which is a toolkit made available from the UN. It's a UN system-wide youth strategy, Youth 2030. If you go there, or if you Google the Youth 2030 UN, you'll probably come up to this toolkit. What the UN tries to do is, to try to compile all the resources for youth to just go and tap into it. So, for example, someone that may sit in West Africa, say like Nigeria, may find something interesting that he or she may want to implement in his or her local communities. Maybe on skills development or education, whereas someone else who sits in a Western development, a Western country or a developing country where the most actual topic may be gender equality or something else. He or she may just take that resource and try to implement it. And this way you create very small actions around the world, across the globe, which essentially contribute to that something bigger. The only thing which I urge, and what we need to put processes in place. One is because I think what has been mentioned, a lot of people, a lot of young people, they have no idea. They don't know how to get involved with the UN. They don't know how to enact change. They don't know how to influence change. So I think we do have the responsibilities. I have the responsibility with my foundation to share that knowledge, make sure that we have processes and we have something in place that would allow anyone, no matter where he or she or they are based across the world, to say, hey, I have a voice. I want to really be part of it. No matter how small it is, to voice it. The UN has UNICEF has a platform called the U Report. which allows them to connect to youth in a lot of countries around the world. I think it's about like 70 countries. It allows them to transmit and convey messages very locally through using social media, through using messenger platforms that are even more available in those countries than we may think, that are like, we think like we take it for granted. And we have a few platforms, but if you go to some countries in India, like India is very focused on like Facebook and Messenger, everyone sits on there. So it's easy for the UN to tap into that. So it's like, I think the importance is really trying to find those processes and kind of like share knowledge. One example we have at my foundation is we have this section called like get familiar with the UN, get familiar with IMF. So if we see someone that is willing to engage, someone that is willing to participate in any of those frameworks, we try to educate them, we try to train them, make them understand how they really can drive change in a very process-driven way. Because the action today will maybe like impact in a couple of years.
Yes, thank you very much for very motivating also conclusion. And just one question to you, dear speakers. Try to be a bit more futuristic. How do you see the United Nations in 100 years? It's going to be from one side very soon. You're going to be still young and active, and maybe you will have some important positions in international organizations at national level or wherever. So how do you see the future? Maybe briefly, but still.
Yeah, I'm happy to start actually.
Yeah.
Just very briefly, I mean, UN will play an incredible role, but it won't be able to, achieve on its mission, on its pillar, without including civil society, without including all, the voice of youth. By 2100, the global population is set to reach about 11 billion, 10.9
no,
billion.
2045. When UN is going to be 100, so it's going to be 245.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll just decrease it. So by
we are going to live in this time also.
Yeah.
So we will see. We will check.
Let me take it back. By 1 million, so it will be about 9.8 billion in 2050. The amount of youth will go from the current 1.8 billion to it will be the increase will be like, we will be able to to see it. We'll have like the UN is trying to focus on net hunger, like net zero energy. There are a lot of like those frameworks, and I believe like they're in their early stages. Like we're not there yet. We need like that push. We need to push. And we need a contribution from the civil society. We need push from non-profit organizations, but also non-governmental leaders like even the Russian cows, I believe can contribute with steering the conversation, including youth, because it's up to us to to drive that change. We have the some responsibilities, and we need to acknowledge that change that will happen if we just if we are sitting in our chairs and without doing really that action. We'll just end up with even bigger pandemic. Well, we just realize that there's much more hunger, there's much more deficit on food, there's energy and so on. So yeah, my just conclusion is the civil society, and there will be platforms in place that will indirectly be able to influence that decision making at the UN at the highest level without actually being the UN.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Georgie.
Oh, well, I would love to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the United Nations with you all. And well, if we're talking about the prospects, first of all, I would really like to see where the organization will take SDGs next after the 2030, and what next step for this sphere of sustainability would be. Obviously, new threats and challenges would emerge, but I would really love to see the initiative succeed, and for us not to spend time knocking our heads what went wrong and what we did wrong, why the SDGs proved to be something that nobody expected them to be. And personally, I would like to see more activity from not even states, but NGOs and transnational corporations. We are aware that it is the United Nations, and nations is an important part, but international relations are evolving, and the role of states is not going to increase in the future, as far as I can see it. And it is important to take into consideration the position of corporations, of NGOs, and maybe finally to give them a say in all the in making the agenda, because without their participation in achieving all the goals that United Nations is to set in the future, it will be futile. And this is one of the spheres that needs addressing. The organization needs to evolve, to adapt, and to take new actors into consideration. That's how I see it.
Thank you so much, Georgie. And Delay, what is your vision of future? Are we going to meet for 100 years anniversary?
So my vision would be more impactful United Nations, especially on human rights, gender equality, environment. I see the UN as the big support for those issues. And when we think about it, for example, UN Women has been created only around 10 years ago. And I think that this agency, I take the example of UN Women and gender equality because it's very close to my heart. But I think UN Women has so much potential, and they're doing a lot of very interesting and engaging initiatives. He for She, for example, and it's initiatives in which people like you and me can get involved directly. So I really hope to see the UN evolving in that way, bringing more initiatives in which everyone can get involved and also can have an impact. So more impactful UN, but also impactful thanks to the impact of everyone will have thanks to those actions. And a very strong role of mediator, because the international relations are evolving, constantly evolving, and they will always evolve, they will always change. And I think it's very important, like for me, that at its 100 years, the UN will also be able to adapt quickly to these changes and these evolutions.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And for the evaluation, I would like to give the floor to Natalia. What is your opinion about our discussion, United Nations, and the future of the United Nations?
Well, it's very difficult to evaluate, and I have no right to evaluate, honestly, because you are young, but you're very professional experts already, and I see you as future politicians and maybe diplomats. So I really regret maybe and envy a little bit because today you have much more options to work as NGO leaders, as young leaders, diplomats, and young experts, and to participate in this international cooperation. Because when I graduated from the university, we didn't have, or maybe our generation, we didn't have such a chance. By the way, I was a member of the UN model, one of the first UN models at GIMO, and people who participated with me at the UN model now became important diplomats, I would say, in the Russian system of the Ministry for Foreign Affairs. So I really like the discussion. I see that you are very good professionals, and I would like to invite you to participate in our projects already, in Meeting Russia project. As for the UN in 100 years old, yes, you asked about this period. I hope, I hope, well, I think that the life will be dramatically different, and maybe it will not require such structures and UN. And maybe people will require interplanet structures, probably, who knows, for cooperation. But still, people will always need some platforms for dialogue, some platforms for common discussions, whether it is UN or not, but there will be something, at least, I hope. So thank you very much. I really enjoyed this professional discussion today.
Thank you very much, Natalia, and thank to all our honorable speakers. You are very motivated people, so I'm sure that you are the changers, those people who bring change in our life and who make our world really better place. So thank you so much for your time, for your participation, and today was a real connecting point, connecting people discussion. We are very happy about this. We wish you all the best, and hope to meet you soon in person. Again, invite you to our Brussels Dialogue forum that is going to be on 23rd October in Brussels, or we will be happy to meet you at other platforms, maybe the United Nations. So thank you so much. Have a nice evening and see you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, and for everyone watching it today. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.